This project on dictators is stupid. I already know why dictators are bad, and that they come to power with just an army. That's why they come to power.
Actually, you're wrong. Dictators come to power and ruin countries through the everyday people who put them there.
Wait, why would people put a dictator in power?
They don't mean to. They just do it because of the ignorance of their corruption that's happening in their country, the military power that the dictator has, and then just through plain old religion. Call me, I'll show you.
Alright.
Die Tatsache, dass ich heute nach Deutschland gekommen bin.
This guy's gonna fix the whole economy.
I know he's gonna get this land.
He'll fix all our problems.
That's how some dictators get power. They offer the people what they want in order to gain support. Then they take the support and use it to change the direction of the government to suit the dictator.
But don't they realize that the change is going on?
Most don't. They don't investigate enough before things get out of hand.
Why don't they investigate?
The people get caught up in how good the new leader is, and they just get caught up in all the support.
Well, don't they know how bad things get after a while?
Most of the people don't. Many of the leaders have control over media outlets, so they can just censor out any news that puts them in a bad light. One article from Foreign Policy stated that Chavez, the former president of Venezuela, had so much control over his country's media that he had suffered little political damage from inflation and high murder rates.
You said he was the president. Why didn't the people just vote him out?
Why do you think I used quotes around president? It's because many systems that have presidents, like Chavez, have manipulated news sources so much that when elections come around, most of the people vote for these leaders who have complete control over the news sources.
So the people are the ones that keep leaders like that in power because they don't vote him out.
It's not because they're not voting them out, it's because the people don't know enough to make informed decisions on who they want in power. They just need to know what is happening in their own countries and who is causing all the problems.
Okay, I think I'm starting to understand. What else did you say the people do?
Oh yeah, the causation of military enforcement. In a situation where the people of a country don't like what's going on, they rebel. It starts with protests that typically include people marching in the streets with signs expressing their desires for change and overall values. Then, when the protests become a disturbance to the peace of the cities and the countries, the military comes to stop them.
But the people are merely trying to express themselves. What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that is that the people are being hypocritical in their stance on the situation. In relation to my first point, the people are generally not careful to consider the values of the leader when he is newly appointed because they're so desperate for whatever change they can get, for better or worse.
You make it sound like the dictator in power is doing nothing wrong. We know that's not true.
Of course, these oppressive rulers are doing something wrong, but it's not just simply them. The people have a part to play in it too. For example, in a true story called A Hope More Powerful Than the Sea, the author Melissa Fleming writes about how the trouble began in the country of Syria. She mentions how the people of Syria were expecting good change to occur with the introduction to the new president, Bashar Assad, but they were not careful to assess the past and truly think about the future with this president, only discovering too late that they had to rebel to restore their country.
What happened when they rebelled?
From someone lighting themselves on fire to schoolboys posting graffiti on a wall to continue a mob protest that I mentioned earlier. The people rebelled in Syria and they caused the military to come in and tear gas the people and send in tanks and even put a siege over the city of the main character, Doha. Even after all this, the people rebelled more, which caused even harsher military enforcement to come in until the cycle caused a war to break out in the land.
I can see how the people escalate the conflict with their ignorance and their actions that cause enforcement.
That's not all. Another huge way that leaders oppress people is by using their religion.
Well, how is it the people's fault then if the leader is the one manipulating them?
It's because the people don't question it. They just look at him and say, oh, he's a religious man, and they don't fight back.
Oh wow, that is manipulative.
But they don't just use it to manipulate. A lot of times these leaders will actually cherry pick things from religion and turn it into law. Often those laws benefit the ruler and give him more power to further oppress the people. In the book A Thousand Splendid Suns and the book Kite Runner by Khalidam Hosseini, the Taliban, who are a terror group and I think we could all agree oppressive, come in and implement Sharia law, which is an extreme interpretation of the religion Islam. Any freedom the people had were basically lost when this happened, but the people let it happen because they were Islamic. The people allow these things to happen, don't you see?
You're still making it sound like the people are bad and that it's their fault that these leaders are in control.
No, I'm saying that the actions taken by these people were just not the best choices that could have been made. Being ignorant of what's actually happening in their country and what the leaders are really doing is turning these people into sheep that'll just believe and do anything. The bad reactions to the events in their countries, like just violent protests, have just escalated conflict and made everything worse. And blindly following religion has allowed leaders in countries like in the Middle East to make laws and policies that would never be allowed in normal government, but because religion is tied so closely to their government that they're allowed to stay because they adhere to their religious code. People need to learn to question their government and not escalate conflicts and not be blinded by their religious beliefs. It's not the people's fault, it's mostly the dictators. I just wanted to show you that the people aren't completely innocent and sometimes brought it upon themselves. They're not to blame, but they're not completely not to blame.
Well, I think I get it now. I can write this paper and see that there's a lot more to this than I thought.
All right, good luck.
Thanks.